What's up everyone, Adrian here, and in today's video I want to talk about why I have two Instagram handles and what it means to me to have those two Instagram handles and how I effectively manage them as I'm separating different kinds of content with each other and sharing it with you guys. So this subject of the video stems from a couple different places, namely, at the time of this video, I have a week left until I head out to Taiwan for a couple weeks. So I'm going to be exploring the country from up and down, seeing new sights, different places, meeting new people, and eating some really good food. But that also means that I'm going to be thinking about what is the content that I want to go ahead and plan for and share, both within my two Instagram handles. One being YoKuya_Adrian, the other one being Kuya_Adrian. And if you aren't following me on both of those Instagram pages / channels, or however we wanted to know them, go ahead and check them out because they have content for different things. Kuya_Adrian is going to be more photography focused, so going to be talking about tips and tricks on travel photography, portrait photography, and also just some reels too about like some of the cool places that I've photographed as well. And looking at YoKuya_Adrian, that's going to be more of like a general not only a photography page, but just more so like things that I'm doing in that current space and time, and just some of the interests that I've either taken on or just like continue to pursue. So recently I have videos of like me eating out in different restaurants in Seoul, giving some recommendations and also just what to expect, as well as just some really cool content around like diving as well. Going to Indonesia to meet up with a couple friends, but more of that to come later on. Probably not for the rest of this year because Taiwan's right around the corner, and also snow season's around the corner too. So who knows what that page will have in store. I do know, but not the viewer. And if you want to know, you got to be in the loop to know. But with that in mind too, I also look back at this moment and think to myself like, not only have I started a YouTube page this year, which has been really exciting and engaging, but I didn't think that I was going to have two Instagram handles and just using them both in tandem with each other to this extent. I've had two Instagram handles for a couple years now, but my OG one, I've had that ever since like I think my first or second year of high school. So I'll get into a little bit more of that in the story time. And the way that I want to break this video down is the first part of it is going to be a bit of a story. We're going to be talking about the formation of my OG Instagram handle, and then how the second one that we know today, Kuya_Adrian, came to be. And then we're going to talk about the practicalities and the benefits of having both of those Instagram handles. And then from there, we can get into the channel updates and what you can expect moving forward. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get right into it. Can't forget before we start, because it's going to be a nice story time. And this reminds me, stay hydrated my friends. Go ahead and get yourself something nice to drink, and while I tell this story, stay thirsty my friends. So starting off with my OG Instagram handle, it is YoKuya_Adrian, but that name that I shared with you, it wasn't like that beginning out. I think my first one, my OG one, was like the first initial of my first name, followed by like my last name, and then followed by like some kind of number. I forget exactly. But YoKuya_Adrian, that was something that was rebranded this year when I started my YouTube channel. I'll get into that a little bit later on. But Instagram at the time when I first started out was just more of like a social kind of application, used in a way where it's like, oh, we can just see what other people are doing outside of like, say, school or like our daily lives. So at the time in like, I think my first or second year of high school when I first had it, when I first started it, I also had like Twitter. Twitter wasn't until college. I had Snapchat as well as Facebook at the time too. So I had 3 different social channels, but it was Instagram that was mainly used along like most of my peers because, and in tandem with Snapchat too, but I felt like Instagram was much more. But yeah, going off of Instagram a little bit, it underwent a lot of changes throughout the years. It wasn't what it is today. But yeah, it was just a way for me to engage with other people through school and outside of school as well. So that was really cool for a while. Just nothing really special about it. I didn't post a whole lot about it, or a whole lot through it. Better put, it was just for me to keep in touch with some others. And it wasn't until in college that I became much more active on Instagram. I still had my OG one at the time and used it, but not to the extent of another social app. I felt like it was in my college era that Snapchat was used much more frequently to just not only communicate and converse with people, but just be able to share like what are the cool things happening around campus. So that was really fun at a time. But looking at it now, I felt like Snapchat died down rather quickly outside of undergrad, and then I started to use Instagram a bit more too. And I think part of it too is like, well, we're not in proximity with each other. Like me and my dorm mates or even my friends, like we all came from different places. So I think that Instagram became a much more prevalent platform to share like what are we doing traveling wise or just like other life updates. And I did find myself engaging with a lot more people within both my high school as well as my college communities on Instagram relative to whether it be Facebook, Instagram, or no, Facebook, Twitter, and Snapchat. Now, I've rocked with Yokuya Adrian, as we know today, for quite a while. I've had that for well over 10 years, but I did take a break from it after undergrad because there came a time where COVID was a thing, lockdowns happened, and there was this weird era where like, you know, we're all just stuck in our own homes and trying to figure out how do we keep ourselves occupied. And as restrictions became much more less restricted, I was approached by one of my old high school friends. I think it was back in like October 2021 or 2022. I can't exactly recall off the top of my head, but he proposed the idea of, hey man, do you want to go ahead and create a, you know, do this photography journey with me? And in learning more about the details of like what he's proposing at the time, I thought it was really cool, like seeing as how there are YouTubers and photographers on social media that are able to make a living off of their camera and create these really cool, stunning pages for themselves, both on YouTube as well as Instagram. I was like, wow, that just sounds something really dope that I want to pursue. And I'm glad that I stuck with photography even to this date because, you know, I wouldn't be able to share like what my interests are or like the craft or like some things that I've observed if I didn't have my second Instagram page. But yes, it was during that like October, I think 2021 or 2022, that I've launched the second Instagram handle. And in doing so, keep in mind Yokuya Adrian, which is the photography channel that I have now on Instagram, it wasn't like that back. It wasn't the same name as when I started it out. It was a different name too. I can't recall exactly. As you can tell, I am getting old, and I am getting older, but let's just safely say I'm in my mid-20s. Yeah, mid-20s. That's how I like to disillusion myself. I started that Instagram page because I thought it was really appropriate for me to have a second one versus like having photography in a way consume that personal space that I've carved out for myself with my first Instagram page. The first Instagram page I've kept locked away and just really haven't been posting a lot on it. And I've used Kuya_Adrian for quite a while, ever since like the early 2020s. Since the early 2020s to just engage and interact with people. Now, this section of the video is going to be a little bit muddled up, but bear with me a little bit. We're going to get into a little bit of the practicalities between having both those two Instagram pages, and I think actually there's a really good segue of doing so, because the fun thing about having a second Instagram page is that I can go ahead and focus on one thing, and that being my creative passion for photography, whether it be like learning about photography or like being able to share what it is that I'm doing at the time that's photography related. It was such a refresher compared to just having just one Instagram account. And like I mentioned a little bit earlier too, the reason why I kept both those separate is because I can go ahead and just focus on one thing and not feel like this personal aspect of just having that first OG Instagram handle was being consumed by one thing. I wanted to keep them separate, and I'm glad that I did, because when it came to separating those two entities from each other, that photography one, I could just focus on engaging with a different kind of community or slash persona. Here I am interacting with people who have these really cool photos of like places that they visited or like really cool shots that they took, whether it be like outside of California or like inside of California, hell, like even internationally as well. I can legit talk to someone who is in Europe at like, say, 10 o'clock at night, my time, and then we can just have a conversation and just learn about like some of the things that inspire us and just like how we create. And that right there was just so refreshing to me, knowing that like, oh, I'm actually in this, and like I'm engaging with different people that are not within just this Bay Area bubble that I've been born and raised for quite a while. That was really beautiful. Speaking of beautiful, having this progress of just focusing on one thing and seeing as how it's progressed from this wee little root to like this really grand old oak tree of like now me being a much more skilled photographer and having a finer eye for some of the finer things out there in the field. Like just seeing that progression over time just made me feel really good, knowing that like I can go ahead and continue to pursue this, and that like the more time and effort that I engage and invest in my craft, I can go ahead and see progress and results. Where like now if I started posting so many different things on one channel versus on just one channel, I just feel like I wouldn't be able to see that growth and progression, because now that content is kind of like scattered throughout the grid. And yeah, again, seeing that content just manifest and focus on one thing just gave me the confidence of like knowing that I am progressing and that I can go ahead and push it even further as I just continue to develop my craft. I will say when it came to separating those two things too, another good benefit is that I can go ahead and be experimental with one over the other. I say that in the sense that having a second Instagram page just allowed me a lot more creative freedom. Now this one can be blown out in a couple different areas, but let me go ahead and try to break this down as simple as possible. Now, when it came to Kuya_Adrian, that being the photography page, it focused on mainly photography tips and tricks, and also just now incorporating reels of like what it is that I'm shooting, like some more photography related stuff. And while I have Kuya_Adrian, that one right there is more focused on not photography. It's more focused on things that still I have an interest in and are a reflection of like my interest and activities of what I like doing. But I can go ahead and just post content on there that I feel just is more appropriate for that space and time versus just throwing it out onto Kuya_Adrian. So, like for example, there's a couple videos on Kuya_Adrian that I feel very much proud of. And a lot of it included videos of just ways of like, oh, how do you travel around a country, or like, or in Seoul, for example, things that to look out for, why I love the Chase credit card, and also just some other silly things that I feel like I can do with a lot less like seriousness to it. It's a lot more whimsical, and it's a lot more like, I'd say, I'm still trying to find my voice on that platform, but I just feel like I can post what it is that I want without having to worry about like, oh, like, is this photography post going to be like really cool or not? I'm like, no, like I can just be me. I can just be average. I could just enjoy the art of creating and sharing something. And I would say out of all the reels that I've shared on that that Instagram page to date, one of my most favorite ones, which is also one of the most underperforming ones relative to everything else, is going to be the caught in a thunderstorm in Seoul, like quote-unquote lo-fi video. So that to me right there is a prime example of like, this is just me being creative, and I can just go ahead and express myself however it is that I want to, versus like, oh, I have to think about like Kuya_Adrian is like, I need to drive engagement on that. I need to really focus on branding myself as a photographer. Whereas in Kuya_Adrian, like I can just post what it is that I like. At the time of that in a thunderstorm in Seoul video, I'm gonna share some of the metrics here too. Like I think I have like 159 views on that, whereas everything else that was not related to, that was more like educational in a way. For example, the Chase Sapphire lounges, or just like some of the apps that I used in Seoul, like they got at least like 300 views and plus. And I was like, okay, yeah, like there's some things that people care about, some things that people don't really care about, or just don't see as like, in a way, consistent with the rest of the content. But by all means, like that wasn't the purpose of Kuya_Adrian. That was more of the purpose of like not only mentioning to my existing following on that hey, this is what I'm doing now in terms of like the YouTube space, but this is also a facet of me that overlaps with the photography and the content page, that being Kuya_Adrian. And kind of going back to Kuya_Adrian, I can go ahead and focus more on that kind of content and just dedicate it more to photography. By all means, I'm not using that as a way to just keep it separate from Kuya_Adrian, because there is a lot of overlap between the two. I even use that both Instagram pages to relate to each other and just also post to and reach out to different personas, like, hey, like, if you want to learn more about XYZ, go follow this page, and vice versa. So using that in that practical sense also helped me out both mentally and creatively, whereas like I can theoretically post whatever it is that I want, create whatever it is I want, but also still filter it down to 2 different pages, where like if one party, persona, or community wants to focus on one aspect of my life that I'm interested in, they can go ahead and follow that, versus, yeah, this photography community, I can still keep that in its own separate like room or column, and then I can go ahead and engage out to them. Whereas now with Kuya_Adrian, I want to use that more as like an educational platform and just engage with people that who may be struggling with either photography or with photography, but in the grand scheme of things being as creative. So I'll talk more into some of the channel updates later on in this video. What's up everyone, Adrian here again, doing a quick interjection in this part of the video. So here I am in my editing mode, I got my glasses on, and in reviewing this current footage right now, and in retrospect, there are some things that I feel like I missed. There's this one snippet that I do want to add, which does relate to the topic of separate communities and just having the benefit of having 2 Instagram pages, and more importantly, just having separate content for each kind of community and slash persona. I wanted to include an example from one of my past experiences in working with the brand. You're going to hear more about the story and like what I learned from it. By all means, I love this brand and much love and power to them, but I'm just talking about it from the perspective of like me as a creative and like what I could have done differently in working with this kind of content for, I think, like at least 6 videos minimum within the span of like a 6-month time frame. But yeah, I just wanted to include this into this section of the video because I felt like this example was appropriate. And yeah, with that in mind, let's just go ahead and hop right into it. There was a time when I was using Kuya_Adrian much more intentionally, and it was like, I think 2 years ago, but I did work with a brand, like one of my favorite brands. And the thing is, I was posting content on Kuya_Adrian that related to both cycling as well as snowboarding, which at the time, in retrospect, and by all means, hindsight's 2020, I felt like that kind of content was just much more appropriate for my OG account, because it was related to like different lifestyle activities and it was completely separate from photography. So I feel like posting that kind of content related to those like outdoor lifestyle activities was just much more appropriate on one versus the other, because now I felt like it kind of confused my audience of like, wait, this guy used Kuya_Adrian as more of like a photo account, but now we see content related to cycling as well as snowboarding. Like, when are we going to see the photography content too? So that's something that is, I'd say, another practical benefit of having 2 Instagram accounts, is that not only do you have 2 different kind of communities, 2 different communities that you can engage with and just keep things separate, but you can also separate out your content so that way you can go ahead and just focus on one thing over the other. That way it keeps the messaging consistent through those channels. And that was something that I, in a way, kind of had to learn the hard way. Not to say that creating content for one of my favorite brands wasn't fun, but I just felt like it was, I mean, by all means, it was definitely fun and really cool for what it is, and it was a really cool opportunity to have at the time. But just looking at it, I felt like I could have, at least for me, the creative, done it in a different way, so that way I could just keep certain things in its respective spaces. Now that we have uncovered that story, let's get back into some of the disadvantages when it comes to working with multiple Instagram accounts. Let's get right into it. One of the drawbacks of having 2 Instagram pages is there's a lot more to manage. I say that because now I'm thinking of content that I should post for both pages and seeing like how that schedule is going to work out. So there are times within my calendar for like the past like 3 or 4 weeks where like I had to post something every day, because if I don't, that's a day missed, and then it kind of backs up the rest of the photography, or even the reels that I'm sharing at the time. I will say it is very active and engaging, and there's never a dull moment, but at the same time just thinking like really far ahead and just seeing how like what it is I'm going to post or going to share at the time. I had to be so much more on the ball with everything that at times like, and I've experienced this in really posting early on with Kuya_Adrian, is burnout. That's just one of the things that's going to be inevitable as a creative. So by having 2 Instagram pages, yes, it is a lot more work, it is a lot more engaging and can be fun, but just being able to take care of myself both mentally and creatively, and separating that different kind of content, that mattered to me a lot too. But just giving myself the allowance to like in a way breathe, and also just focus on what's going on in the moment, not thinking too far ahead to the point where now it's like I'm getting so lost in the sauce. That was something that I had to like really work around with and manage, and continue to manage even now, especially with YouTube in the mix too. But I would say, yeah, when it comes to YouTube, posting something onto there and sharing it with both my communities within both Instagram handles means a lot to me, because not only am I reaching a wider audience on there too, but I can go ahead and deliver content in a different way, which kind of going back to the benefit of having 2 Instagram handles, it's taught me a lot about how to manage working with short form content and just focusing on content that's just not as long form. Well, by short form content, I mean posting reels that are like a minute 30 or less, because if you post reels over a certain amount of time limit, they're not going to be pushed out to a they're not going to be as pushed out. Funny enough, like I feel that now with all of our attention spans being much shorter than it is, like it's just really easy to consume content, and just also much more harder to compete. But we're not going to get too deep into that rabbit hole. That's a separate discussion for another time. But yes, having to understand and learn and play with short form content was also really engaging and really fun, and a different challenge for me to grow as a person and as a creative. Now I can go ahead and post on both Instagram pages like what it is that I'm doing in a long form context kind of setting, which this YouTube is another step or chapter in my life where now I can engage with a wider audience and just with you guys in a different way too. I feel like there's more to tell a story than what you see in like, say, a 10 slide Instagram post, or even a minute 30 reel, or like a 30-second reel of like just one specific thing. There's just more to uncover and engage with and talk about, and I'm really happy that I'm doing this and connecting with you guys on this platform now too. Now, I'm sure there's going to be a lot more to this video that I need to add, but that's not until I see in the editing what it is that I missed. But yeah, if you guys like the content so far, go ahead and give it a like, and just let me know, like, hey, what it is that you do to keep yourself mentally and creatively sane in this world of social media and like trying to post out a bunch of content. This is what I do for myself, and I find that having 2 Instagram handles really does help at the same time too. While we're at it too, like, do you have 2 Instagram handles? Do you have maybe more than 2? What is it that you're using it for? I'm very interested in seeing like what the responses are like from there. And if you want to hear more about some of my travels related to my future travels later on, and just like other photography tips and tricks, go ahead and drop a subscribe, so that way you are also within the know. You gotta be in the know to know, you know? But yeah, with that in mind, in terms of channel updates, what I'm looking forward to in the next coming weeks is just being out of the country again, probably for the final time before the year ends. Taiwan is going to be a really big trip for me, because I haven't been out of the country for an extended period of time by myself, and it's just really that was a taste of like what solo travel was like for at least 5 days. That's going to be really exciting to see what Taiwan's like. But yeah, more content to come on both my Kuya_Adrian as well as Kuya_Adrian accounts, as well as like I will be making YouTube videos following Taiwan as well too, because I have a lot to share on there, or will have a lot to share come following the trip. But with that in mind, hope you guys enjoy the video. As always, stay safe out there, travel, eat good, and enjoy life. And yeah, with that in mind, peace out.